Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Down. Welcome you to yet another Cutter Top 10 sports video. And today we're looking at a baseball video and we're looking at the top 10 MLB what ifs in history, like scenarios that could have played out and all that. Of course, I'm wrapping the Toronto Batista jersey for this Blue Jays thing, MLB look. So we got 10 MLB moments, so let's talk about it. First off, number 10 is what if Don Larson had pitched a perfect game in the 1956 World Series? Well, I mean, pitching a perfect game is hard enough. I mean, before Domingo Germán did it for the Yankees, that it took 11 years. Like 2012 was the last time there was a perfect game, and it took like over a decade till the next perfect game happens. Of course, that means that you retire all the hitters without giving up any base runners, no errors, no hit by pitch, no hits, no nothing. What have you not pitched a perfect game? Well, it's hard to do in the first place. Like, baseball would have moved on. We had perfect games and all that for many years. I mean, it elevated it. And it almost botched him. Like, Don Larson threw his perfect game in game number 5. I mean, the Yankees lost game 6 to the Dodgers. And the Dodgers forced game 7, which the Yankees beat the tar out of the Dodgers 10-0 in kind of response to what happened in 1955 with the Dodgers winning on the Yankees turf. But yeah, like it wouldn't be that bad and all that. Number 9 is what if Sandy Koufax was still pitching and his elbow didn't ruin him? Well, Sandy Koufax, a lot of people forget that he didn't start off that fast. In his first 4 seasons, by 1960, he was like 4 games below 500. He was striking out people, but he was also walking people left, right, and center. His win-loss record sucked. A lot of people thought that Koufax was basically a goner, but then Norm Sherry or some pitching coach gave him a bit of advice by 1961 to use his fastball more. And Koufax pitched his fastball and pitched a no-hitter in 4 straight seasons, 1962, 63, 64, and 65. Well, 65 was the perfect one against the Cubs. Like, he retired at his peak because of injury in 1966. It would have been a Cinderella story that if Koufax, with his arthritic elbow, would have pretty much won the World Series, but the Orioles shut down the Dodgers and their pitching and all that. Yeah, you pitched longer, his numbers were record book presence would be greater. There's also the fact that this was before the Tommy John surgery and all the surgeries you hear about. This is 1966 when he retired. Like if he had the technology of 2026, Koufax probably would have pitched 5 to 10 years more, and who knows? Maybe he would have thrown a fifth or sixth no hitter. He was just that dominant. Number 8. What if the Red Sox actually kept Roger Clemens and all that? Well, that's hard to say. A lot of people said that they may have ended the championship drought sooner. But the fact of the matter is that, except for their 1986 season, I mean, what good season did the Red Sox have? Yeah, they won the division in 88 and 90, but the Oakland A's basically beat the tar out of them. They were good teams. And the Red Sox were decent in the mid 90s, not superstars. Like the Yankees picked up speed. The Blue Jays were starting to go downhill. But I mean, yeah, you know, Dan Duquette got rid of Clemens because Duquette figured that Clemens had just stopped pitching. He won 192 games as a Red Sox, tying Cy Young for that record. I mean, Clemens had a 20 strikeout game his second last start in Detroit in 1996. So Clemens, would have went elsewhere. Clemens actually took a better deal in Toronto than in Boston. Like Duquette did not want to keep him around, and Clemens did throw the 16 strikeout performance in Boston, July '97, and he glared at the GM thing. I wish he had flipped him off. That would have been funny. Clemens ended up winning back-to-back Cy Youngs in Toronto in 1997 and 1998. One problem, though, Clemens would be traded to the Yanks in 1999 for David Wells. Well, David Wells was serviceable, but Clemens pitched well with the Yankees, and you don't want to see that. And worst of all, Clemens in his 2 seasons in Toronto had been part of the Mitchell report for steroids because of Brian McNamee, the trainer. Like, fuck, why did we hire that guy? Anyway, number 7 is what if Babe Ruth was still a pitcher? Well, you know, in baseball, like it was hard to do both pitching and hitting and all that. We don't know about Shohei Ohtani nowadays being able to do that, but baseball in those days didn't really have like a pitcher and a hitter at the same time. Although he did pitch some games with the Yankees, Babe Ruth once he was traded from the Red Sox to the Yankees. I mean, the massive what if Babe Ruth had stayed in Boston and not gone to the Yankees? Maybe the Yankees would have been a floundering franchise. That's possible. And of course, what if Babe Ruth wasn't such a headache for Boston? I mean, like he was okay for like the Ed Burrow, and then once he got dealt away, and there was a new guy, Kerrigan, came in, and Babe Ruth was not there. Well, Ruth kind of got himself off the Red Sox because of his stupidity and all that, and everyone should know that. That's just how I feel. But yeah, I think Babe Ruth definitely would have set the standard for pitchers slash hitters and all that, like the Shohei Otanis nowadays. Number 6 is what if the Cubs had not traded Luke Brock? You could say that for many lopsided trades and all that. One of the most lopsided in history was in 1964 when the Cubs and Cardinals made a trade in May. The Cubs had Luke Brock. He was a decent hitter, but a fielder, boo, boo. They really needed some pitching, so they looked at St. Louis and Ernie Broglio and said, that's the guy we need. So they decided to trade Luke Brock to the Cardinals for Broglio and hope for the best. Unfortunately, Broglio did not work well at Wrigley Field, and Lou Brock put up over 3,000 hits and 938 stolen bases in his MLB career. Pretty much the majority of it was with St. Louis. He did play a few games for the Cubs, but he was a Cardinal. And heck, you know what? The Cubs in the late 60s, early 70s probably would have been fine. But of course, it's like, what if Lou Brock didn't work out? Well, for the one of one Ernie Broglio. But Lou Brock was the typical leadoff guy. I think he's the greatest NL leadoff hitter of all time. You've got Ty Cobb and Ricky Henderson in the American League. But National League, who else do you have that's a good leadoff hitter for the National League? Like guy. Well, Ricky Henderson when he was in the National League, but whatever. But yeah, Lou Brock kind of helped the Cardinals in 1964 with that big rally against the Phillies, winning the NL and going to the World Series. Number 5 is what if Shoeless Joe Jackson and the Black Sox weren't banned or they behaved themselves? That 1919 scandal was one of the biggest scandals in history and all that. The White Sox were the champs in 1917, and then 2 years later they were scheduled to play the Reds. They were heavy favorites, and then all of a sudden the betting line shifted towards the Reds. Rumors were circulating that the White Sox players, the 7 players, and Buck Weaver, who actually didn't take part in the gambling but knew about it and didn't tell anyone, he got booted too. Because Kennesaw Landis said that basically if anyone knows about this thing and doesn't turn in evidence and all that, he will be banned too. But yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson was a great hitter. Eddie Cicotte was a great pitcher. I mean, those 2 guys are the biggest what ifs. It's like, what if they kept their nose clean? White Sox lose the World Series. Who the fuck cares? But a lot of people said they did it because Chicago was the underbelly of gambling, and also Charles Comiskey was a fucking penny pincher. But I mean, like half the owners were penny pinchers. I mean, like, Charles Ebbets for Brooklyn, he was a massive penny pitcher who allegedly stopped a parade to pick up a dime, or was that the Braves owner? But the fact is that, Comiskey partially had something to do with it. And, the newspapers said something about it, but Comiskey turned the other cheek. Probably thinking that no way that it could happen, but it did happen. I mean, they were exonerated from criminal charges, but Commissioner Landis basically said that they couldn't play professional or organized baseball in any shape or form, and they're permanently off the ban. Well, I mean, with the way Rob Manfred has said about the permanently ineligible list, is that you're on it when you're living. So maybe Shoeless Joe Jackson comes back into the Hall of Fame. Maybe Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame once because he's dead. Who knows? Maybe Barry Bonds has to be dead for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Number 4 is what if Lou Gehrig didn't have ALS? Well, Gehrig's career was tragically cut short. A lot of people said he could break more records if illness hadn't ended his playing days. Well, Lou Gehrig was not really the home run power that Babe Ruth had. He was the RBIs guy. He was the guy who could drive in the runs. That's why he was the cleanup hitter or the fourth hitter in the 1927 Murderers Row thing, and Babe Ruth was number 3. Because, you get past Ruth, you have to get past Garrick too, and that basically led the Yankees to do so well. Garrick had a great moment. I mean, the dude had 2,130 career consecutive games in a 162 game schedule like we have nowadays. That's 10 seasons is 1620, and you're like 500 short. That's how you do it. And you have to play every game for 10 years. Every game. Most careers end in like 10 years. That's how big Lou Gehrig's record is. Never mind Cal Ripken's mark, but Lou Gehrig's mark is as big. But yeah, Lou Gehrig probably would have had more RBIs. He probably would have maybe got to 500 home runs. Who knows? But yeah, ALS just ruined him and all that. But I mean, baseball didn't forget about him. I mean, they do have an ALS thing, Lou Gehrig Day on the 4th of July. So yeah. Number 3 is what if the Giants did not sign Barry Bonds in 1993? Barry Bonds was this guy coming from Arizona State. His father, Bobby, bounced around the league for many years, like San Francisco and the Yankees. Barry was a talent for Pittsburgh, but unfortunately he had an ego problem, which kind of alienated the Pirates fans. And the Pirates did get to win 3 NL East titles in a row, which is pretty good. And remember, Bonds, his fielding was so bad he couldn't throw out a very game and sickly Sid Bream at the plate. And that's helped the Braves win the 92 NL pennant and lose to the Blue Jays in the World Series. I think the Jays probably would have beat the Pirates in the World Series because the Pirates just basically were just Bonds and Van Slyke. I mean, Bonilla went to the Mets. But the question on my mind is, what if the Giants didn't sign Barry Bonds in 93? Remember, the Giants were in trouble, financial trouble. Bob Lurie, who bought the team in 1976 after the Giants almost moved to Toronto, couldn't put up with it. And with a new owner, they got the new ownership group, which was big because Giants had the money to get Barry Bonds. And after all, Bobby had been a Giants mainstay, and Barry's godfather, Willie Mays, is a Giants icon. So the landscape of the NL during the 90s would have shifted directly. And who knows? Maybe the Giants probably, if they could not get Barry Bonds, who knows? Maybe they would have been in St. Petersburg. And maybe Tampa Bay would not have had an AL expansion team in 1998. Maybe we put a team in Nashville or Puerto Rico in the American League in 1998. But yeah, the Giants were lucky because Barry Bonds helped that franchise out. And of course, in the 2000s, him hitting all those home runs. I mean, you knew that he was on the juice because he's like so old now and he's hitting home runs left, right, and center. There had to be something suspicious. Number 2 is what if the 1994 MLB season had been canceled? Number 1's a tough one, but yeah, I'm going to say 94 is number 2. This season altered careers, franchise histories, none more so than Montreal, but that's to be talked about a little bit later. Anyhow, so yeah, the 94 MLB season, they had the strike, they had the salary cap issues and all that. The owners basically refused to tell the players that they're broke and all that. Basically, it was like secrecy and all that. But yeah, the Montreal Expos were really bit. I mean, you had Tony Gwynn chasing 400. You had Matt Williams and Jeff Bagwell trying to get to 61 home runs, which was the mark at the time. But yeah, Montreal was 74-40. They were on pace for over 108 wins, which is pretty impressive. And Montreal was on a track. Like April and May, they were not really the greatest, but then by June, July, and August, they were on fire in the National League, and they should have taken everything. But yeah, the Montreal Expos in '94. What if it had not been canceled? The only good thing about the '94 season being canceled is that we were avoiding the 10 game below 500 Texas Rangers from going to the playoffs as the AL West champions. But anyway, yeah, Montreal was doing their damnedest, and all this stuff. And obviously, the 95. I mean, Montreal had to shed salary because the money they would have had for the playoffs would have probably kept them. They probably would have kept Wetland. They probably would have been able to keep Grissom, Ken Hill, and especially Larry Walker. But they just had to get rid of them because of the money problems and all that. I mean, Grissom won the World Series with the Braves in '95. Ken Hill became a Cleveland Indian like Dennis Martinez in '95 was in the final. John Wetland was a star closer for the Yankees in '96 when they won the World Series, and Larry Walker was just destroying baseballs at Coors Field and all that. But yeah, Montreal would have probably still had a team, and the fans probably would have kept the city going. All that. And of course, number one is what if Jackie Robinson hadn't broken the color barrier? Well, the color barrier was big in baseball. There was basically a unwritten rule that no black players could infiltrate baseball and all that. Football, it took the NFL to 1946 when the LA Rams signed some players from UCLA who were colored and all that for that to happen. I mean, basketball was was racist till 1950 when the Celtics signed Earl Cooper or whatever his name was. Hockey didn't see its first black player in the NHL until 1958 with Willie O'Ree. So like baseball, I mean, look at the great baseball players, black baseball players that came when integration finally got broken. Jackie Robinson broke it. Satchel Paige, Don Bankhead, Larry Doby, Roy Campanella. Like those guys would have been slowed down by their progress. I mean, when you look at the legends of the Negro Leagues, like Cool Papa Bell, Josh Gibson, um, Martin DeHigo, the Kansas City Monarchs team, like what are those guys' names? Like uh yeah, like Heavy Johnson. I mean, those guys would have brought some pizzazz to Major League Baseball and all that, and maybe they'll get more there. Unfortunately, though, America was very racist and didn't want integration and all that. It took the South years to actually believe in that stuff. So yeah, Jackie Robinson's career, like we would probably wait until the '60s for our first black baseball player, and that would be just plain stupid, very plain stupid. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.